Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be building stuff in creative mode while I talk. Yeah, I'm going to build a school and talk about what school was like for me. I'm going to talk about my last year. Well, I was only there for 3 months, but yeah, this was so I went to high school in 2023. I just started a new high school. I was at a different high school before, and this high school was awful. Yeah. It was like a prison. I didn't want to be there. It was very unsafe there. They did not have proper heating. It was like so hot that people were sweating. I was sweating buckets, and all I did all day was sit down in class. One day, yeah, it was awful. That was actually my first day there. But I still had to go. Yeah, but that's not the worst part. Yeah, so I'm going there. I did not want to go to this high school. I wanted to keep going to where I was learning before, but my parents wanted me to go to this new high school, so I went there. And I tried to talk to people before them to like ask them questions like, what are my classes, or to even confirm if my parents had even actually enrolled me there, because I was just shocked that they could just do that even though I didn't want to go. And I wanted to keep learning how I was before, but yes, they could. Why does this not one-shot those things? Anyway, I'm getting distracted from the story. So I show up there on the first day. I get given a timetable with my classes in it. I know nothing. I don't know what the schedule is. And I need to be able to sign into the school's computers, but I can't do that because I just started being a student there that day and they hadn't set up my computer yet, so I had to go down to the library and get my computer set up. And then I go there, then I go to my next class, which I struggled to find because I'd never been in the school before. My first class was really close to the entrance, but the main entrance, but this class was not. It was on another floor. Okay, no, this still has to be longer. It's a big school. And then after that I have lunch, and I leave the school during lunch, and I have no idea what time I'm supposed to get back there. I had to call the main office to ask when lunch ended, because no one had told me, because this school was very unprofessional like that, not communicating important information to students. Okay, I think I know how much longer I want it to be. Yet. I didn't know how to change classes because I was forced into a bunch of classes I didn't choose that didn't align with my education goals. I was actually in 5 classes. I was enrolled in 4 in-person classes and an online course. This is long enough. Yeah, I think it's long enough for the scale I want to do. So I ended up calling the main office about my course problem, and they told me to go to like I don't think it was student services, but then student services told me they couldn't help me. So then I ended up calling where I live. There's like this officer appointed by the legislature called the ombudsman, who oversees a bunch of public sector organizations, not just schools, but they do oversee schools. So I went to them because I'm like, no one can help me change my courses into ones that I actually want. Okay, it's also really long this way. It's not as long as in the front, but am I gonna have enough room to do everything I want? Make it longer. And then finally, after I mentioned the words ombudsman to the main office, then suddenly they were able to help me, and I wasn't able to change my courses. I was able to get dropped from my 5th course, since normally students only have 4 courses a semester, but I had 5, so they let me drop my 5th course. But I didn't want to be in any of the other courses because none of them aligned with the path I wanted to take, and they were all really boring. Well, most of them were boring. One of them seemed interesting at the time, but ended up being boring. Yeah, yeah, I thought things were gonna get better now, but I was wrong. Later that month, I discovered that the school had surveillance cameras, which they have to tell the students if they have surveillance cameras, but they didn't. I did not know they had surveillance cameras. So, sorry, I'm just gonna time set day game. To get out of the way. So, yeah, and so I tried to figure out who I should talk to about this. So I think I ended up calling my representative's office, and they said I should go to the guidance office at my school. So I went there, and guidance told me they didn't know what to do. But at this point, I had stopped attending school because this was like a massive privacy breach that they were just recording me and not telling me about it. And then when I couldn't get answers to guidance, I just refused to go back to school, and I would, at that point I'd only missed like, I think, 2 classes that day, because I got guidance the next day. But at guidance, they also told me about other information they collected, like through their technology, like whenever you would interact with the school's website, they would record for how long you were on a page for, whether you clicked on anything on the page, that sort of stuff. And that was also something they had to tell you about, but they didn't tell me, so they broke the law again by not telling me what was on that page. Where should the main, where was, to figure out where to put the main. There. Oh well, how about I'll build up the walls first and then put in the entrance later. Where was I in the story? Oh yeah, so they didn't tell me about their creepy spyware that they had on their website. So they made you sign into their website. This was about specific people they collected. Yeah, and so after I stopped attending, and because I missed a total of 6 classes, which is like less than 2 days worth of school, they had scheduled an appointment with my parents. And the way they did this, they broke the law because they shared information with my parents that was untrue, and even if it was true, they wouldn't have been allowed to send with them. They said I left them a nasty voicemail. No, not nasty, aggressive, I think was the word they used. Which I didn't. I told them to stop their invasive collection practices. Which they didn't do. Yeah, so they scheduled a meeting under which they threatened to have the police harass me if I ever didn't attend school again. And then they also got rid of my e-learning course and instead put me in an in-person course. They also, I believe, collected personal information from my parents, which, by asking my parents questions, which they shouldn't have even done because one, the information was not information which they were allowed to collect, and two, they weren't allowed to collect the information from my parents anyway. But they collected the information anyway, because they had my parents there before I was, and they were talking to them, and they were giant bullies, and they hated me. Yeah, I did not want to go to I didn't really want to go to the school before, but now I really didn't want to go. Yeah, oh yeah, they also told me that they would arrange for me to speak with the board's privacy officer, which they never did. I had to reach out to the privacy officer on my own, and she was like full of bullshit, telling me that actually I should speak to the board's social worker about my concerns with how the board collects, uses, and discloses my personal information, because she has nothing to do with that, which is complete bullshit. She was very much responsible under privacy laws for how the board collects, uses, discloses information about people that, and plus I had no idea how to contact this person. She said I was supposed to contact anyway because but yeah, that was like a trend there where like no one at the school was responsible for anything until you said the words ombudsman. Then suddenly someone was responsible, but until then, they couldn't help you with anything. You want to change your courses, no one can help you with that. You want to complain about how we're handling your information, no one can help you about that. But anyway, after I spoke with the privacy officer ended up sending the principal or vice principal, one of them, like a bunch of papers, and then which they ended up giving to me, and these papers were issued by the Information and Privacy Commissioner and agreed with what I was saying, but then they just lied and said that the papers didn't say what the papers clearly said. They didn't say they had to notify me about how they collected, used, and disclosed my information. They didn't say they needed my consent to disclose it, even though that's what it said. It said that they need consent. They said that, oh no, that only applies if we do a survey, when that's not what the paper said at all. The paper said that it was the guide to privacy and access in schools. But that didn't stop them. Yeah, and then when I refused to be gaslit by the principal being like, I can read, then they told me I was suspended. So then I left the school and told the ombudsman about it, who said that they would talk to their team. Well, it wasn't the ombudsman, it was like one of his staff members. Yeah, but then I stopped going to school because they told me I was suspended. But then they start telling my parents that I'm skipping class, that I need to go back to class. Yeah, but then eventually I end up calling the superintendent's office with the board, and then after the superintendent's office calls the school calls me, and they said that, well, we never said you were suspended, even though they did. Oh yeah, and then my dad's on the school side because I dare to complain about them, and I should not have complained about them. I should just accept whatever they decide is right, which I will never do. But that's a story for another time about my parents and how they let me down. But yeah, so then I start going back to school again, but I start refusing to do work on some days when I'm there, because that's like the only way I have to express my voice. I'm not allowed to not be at school. I'm not allowed to complain while I'm at school, so the only thing I can do is just not do my work. And also not give them any more information at all. Like, they would call for attendance, I would just refuse to say who I was. And I would also start being disruptive in class, and then I would get sent down to the principal's office, who would then not want to speak with me, and they'd just send me back to class. Because there was like nothing they could really do. Because if they start disciplining me, then that means they have to start creating records, and then they start after approving stuff, and it's not, because they knew what they were doing that is what they didn't. Well, they knew what they were doing they shouldn't have been doing, so they did not want to punish me for being disruptive when the only reason I was being was disrupted. When my disruption was me complaining about them breaking the law, like privacy law and other laws. But yeah. Yeah, sometimes I couldn't get out of class by being disruptive, and I just keep being disruptive in class. Then eventually just started refusing to do all work. And I would also decide to go back to the principal's office to complain again. Yeah, because like I would not stop complaining about how they were treating me, about how they would collect information illegally, about how that they weren't allowed to collect. Like they have to, they're only allowed to collect information that's necessary for whatever it is they're doing, and collecting video surveillance is not necessary. Reporting me all the time wasn't necessary. Tracking their websites like that was not necessary. I could have used their online website without them tracking that information, but they tracked it anyway. Yeah. And eventually I discovered this thing, which is that the school could allow me to only have to attend school part-time if there were compassionate reasons to do so. And compassionate wasn't defined by the regulation setting it out, so I thought there were compassionate circumstances given not only the way they were treating me, but also the way these students were treating me, which I'll talk about another time, because I don't want to be here for like hours, because it's but yeah, so there were definitely compassionate grounds, considering the fact that I was like miserable. I wasn't learning anything. and there was no chance of me even graduating anyway because I would leave, but I would become an adult before I would graduate, and then I'd just leave, so there was no reason to force me to stay there. But they refused, so I would just keep asking them over and over again until eventually... Oh yeah, and they punished me for asking by sending out my grades to my parents, and then they tried to say that that was the reason why I was doing it, even though I had no idea what my grades were, and I didn't care. But that's what they did. So which they said that was the reason why I was doing it, or I don't know what they said because I wasn't part of that communication. That's what I think they said. But anyway, yeah, that was just there to be inflammatory because I didn't know that, meaning it had no reason to do with my request for making the request to not be there anymore, but that's what they said. Yeah, but whenever I would complain about them, they would just try to cause a fight between me and my parents. That's what they would do. They were very bad like that. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna finish this up another time. I think I've been here long enough. Yeah, thanks for listening to... Okay, I guess I'll finish up the story. So after I keep making requests to leave, because I don't care about the fact that they're gonna send inflammatory stuff to my parents, which they set the grade, so I don't really know why that matters, because they could have given me A's, they could have failed me. There's very little requirements. They have like pretty much like unlimited discretion into what my grade is, so I don't... Yeah, and plus they like basically made it clear that I had to stop complaining if they wanted me to ever get a good grade, so that wasn't happening, so there was no point in me being there. And eventually my parents took me out. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll finish this build another time and tell you more about my experiences at school, because yeah, like what were the other students like, yeah, why was it so unsafe to be there, and what happened afterwards, because this story doesn't end there with my parents taking me out, but that just feels like a good place to leave it for today. So thanks for listening.